This episode contains content that viewers may find disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Real people speaking about their real experiences with the justice system. This is Chris Cases.
All right. This is another episode of Chris Cases. Today we have a special guest. This is Marc LeBeau. Marc and I go way back. This case is actually from over 9 years ago, almost a decade ago. But Marc and I went through a lot. There was a civil component to this case, a criminal component to this case, and a lot of interesting details. So anyways, Marc, welcome. Thank you for coming on the show.
Certainly. And, well, thanks for having me, even though it's a bit of an odd circumstance, but it'll be an interesting story, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want the viewers to know at least a little bit about you. Can you tell us like where you grew up and what you do and just a little bit of your background?
Yeah, born and raised Arizona, one of the few, the proud and the brave that actually stuck around.
Me too.
Right? And I'm not that young anymore, so I've been here quite a while, but I do IT security. I stop hackers for a living. And I'm actually really good at it. I've done some pretty unique things in the industry. But, kind of from that perspective, I'm like a bit of a criminal in a way, but on the good side. But even to that sake, to do my job, stop hackers for a living, you have to kind of have a bit of a criminal mindset. But, I don't want out there robbing banks or anything like that. I know how to do some things. But nonetheless, yeah, it's just... I have a good mentality and a good morality.
It reminds me of some of those shows where someone will be hacking or get in trouble for that type of cybercrime, and then the FBI will recruit them, and then they'll start working for the FBI, and those are like the people that are employed for the FBI in the show because they're the best ones that were doing it, or the ones that could hack big systems and databases.
That's very much how I became to be who I am. Just a random little kid doing a lot of bad stuff, and finally saw a better path in the world. And oddly enough, I found a way to utilize my bad skills for good.
That's awesome.
And kind of make a career out of it.
That's awesome. Well, let's go ahead and jump right into the case at hand. So basically, I want to take you all the way back to July 25th or 26th of 2016. So it's summer in Arizona. You're driving on the 202.
107 degrees that day, by the way.
Yeah. And so tell us, like, what happens as you're driving? Like, what's going on?
Well, at the time, I was in between my houses. I had my old house for sale in Glendale, and then I had my new house I was living at, on the other side of town, and we're talking a 45-minute drive. And I was out there taking care of some things, and I had a meeting that I had to take care of, so I had to get back to my house where my office is, and I was in a hurry. And, it's about 12:30 in the afternoon by the time I left, and it's about a little after 1 o'clock in the afternoon by the time I got to, the incident area. And yeah, I was just in a hurry. And I mean, there wasn't a lot of traffic on the road. And granted, yes, I'm totally breaking the law by speeding. But, in the sense of reasonable and prudent, those are some special words around the law and speeding. I could say I really wasn't out of bounds. And I mean, it's not even uncommon for the police to drive fast. So just in the sense of context, it's not like I'm zipping in and out of traffic. I'm speeding responsibly.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. So on that stretch of the 202 out in like East Mesa, this was a Monday afternoon around 1 p.m.
There's no one out there.
And
so clear.
You're driving a little more than 20 miles an hour over the speed limit. It's a route that I've taken many, many times before. Monday afternoon around that time, we're not talking rush hour. We're not talking, like you said, weaving in and out of traffic. This is like, you might be the only car on the road at some times during that point because everyone else is at work and school, and like there's not a lot of heavy traffic, especially 9 years ago. Like, we're not talking today as more people have started to live here.
I saw about 3 to 5 cars in about a 10-mile stretch.
I believe it.
So, and yes, you like if you live over here, you would probably believe me as well, especially in the sense of the time. But either way, I'm just heading home, trying to get to my meeting quickly. And well, in fairness, I did not make my meeting. But nonetheless, as I was coming around the bend, I saw Officer Hour in the most popular spot that we all know they like to sit at. And there's a nice little bridge. So we just know they're there. And so, kind of start getting ready to slow down, get prepared, and start looking like, oh, crap, there he is. But I was delayed and whatever. I screwed up. I got caught. But to that sense, I got caught. No big deal. But the key thing is we're coming up to the roundabout on the Brown Road 202 exit. And it's a roundabout, and if I park over here in the lot, in the dirt area where there's nothing out there, I'm on state property in some sense. My vehicle can get towed. Might sound like I've been a little educated and have some prior experience. I do. But nonetheless, if I can find some private property or basically park outside of kind of like in the street in front of a building, ideally in front of someone's house, then likely my vehicle won't be towed. So I just went through the roundabout and I have to go left, basically head east. And unfortunately that means I have to go through the roundabout. And that really, really pissed Officer Hour off quite a bit. Especially because we'd gone up for about 3/4 mile. He says over 1.5 miles, but whatever. I mean, you look at the map. And I finally get off, and right there, right after the very first street, you have the chance to pull over, and I'm doing it very casually. And I even stick my hand out the window, kind of do a little motion. I'm like, going over there, dude. I'm sure he can't hear me. Even if he could, not worth my time to try. So I get over, and I take the left, and I pull over on the side of the road, and he pulls up behind me, and I'm smoking a cigarette at the time. Now, he comes apparently rushing up to my car, incredibly silent, ninja skills, huge props on that, but I just didn't really know it. Like, he starts coming up the car. He's like, "What are you doing?" And I have the door open, and I'm leaning out like this. I have my right hand up in the air, and I have my cigarette down here and putting it out. And he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm just putting my cigarette out. I don't want to blow smoke in your face. I'm trying to be polite." Yeah. And he's like, "Oh, well, guess what?" I'm like, "Huh?" And that's when he grabs my grabbed my left arm, and he yanks me out of the car. And he's like, "You're going to jail." And I'm like, "Okay. I guess I understand at this point, so definitely be extra polite now, because usually as long as you're polite with an officer, even if you do something like really dumb, like criminal speeding, I mean, even 100+ kind of thing, as long as you're cool with them, you're probably going home with a piece of paper, but you're going home too. Versus right. If you're rude, or if you start quoting the law and try to tell them, act like you know their job better than they do, you're probably going to jail. If at the very least, you're probably getting a whole list of tickets.
Right.
Key thing, be cool about it. And again, I've been here before a few times in my life. All for speeding tickets, just whatever.
So I want to stop there for a second and just kind of unpack it a little bit. So as you're getting off, I want to contextualize it. He starts to pull you over. He gets behind you or catches up to you, turns on his lights. And when he does that,
he had his lights on before even the Brown Road exit was like, we had about a half mile, 3/4 mile to Brown Road. So there was that viable time that he had the lights on. Like I knew he was there. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so his lights are on. He's starting to pull you over. But at this point, you're no longer criminal speeding. You're not driving more than 20 miles an hour over the speed limit. You've slowed down to what the speed limit is. You are signaling to get off on the exit at Brown Road. So it's not like you're fleeing from him, I guess is what I'm saying, right?
Correct. And that was one thing he tried to make note. Like he tried to insinuate. He didn't outright say it, but he did try to insinuate in the police report, I do recall, to the effect that I was kind of fleeing. Because he did use that word, fleeing.
Yeah, and you never got charged for unlawful flight or anything, so I don't think anyone is making the argument that you're doing that. But like you said, you're thinking ahead. You're thinking, wow, if I do get arrested, even though I most likely won't because it's just speeding, I don't want my car to get towed, so I want to go and try and park it somewhere that it's legally allowed to be parked and make it so they don't have to tow it.
And I have to go home because I have to go to work and I have to go to a meeting. Like, I really have to go to the meeting.
Right. And so you even at points are like signaling to him, like, hey, I'm going to pull over, like right over here, like sticking your hand out. I've seen people do that like
and
a lot of times.
Too.
Trying to gesture.
Turn signal is used the whole time as well. So there was additional. Go ahead.
Sorry. So after you pull over, you, like you said, you continue to try and essentially be courteous. Like, you're smoking a cigarette and you have your window down. And so rather than having him come up and there's cigarette smoke being blown in his face, you're like, I should probably put this out. And so you open your car door and you lean, just try and like put the ashes out on the ground. Is that right?
Just like this. So one hand in the air, kind of like raising my hands, I surrender, but I have to put the cigarette out.
And when he comes up, he comes in hot. Is that fair?
Oh yeah, I literally from the point that he opened his door, which I don't even think I ever heard him open his door. I true ninja. There was about 3 to 5 seconds from that point to the point that he was at my car, and from the video you can see there was a decent amount of distance. Like, you can't just walk casually and get over there in 3 to 5 seconds.
Yeah. So then it almost immediately, like after you tell him what you're doing, doesn't matter to him. He grabs your left arm and he tells you that you're going to jail. That's the first thing, like one of the first things that he says to you.
Yeah, first was, what are you doing? Smoked a cigarette, or trying to put my cigarette out so I don't blow smoke in your face, just trying to be polite. And then, well, guess what? And then he grabs my wrist and he yanks me out of the car. And I was barefoot because my sandals are underneath my seat in my car, because you don't drive with sandals on because you don't want them to get stuck behind the pedal. And oddly enough, it is actually legal to drive in Arizona sandals. I did not know that until prior to this case. But nonetheless, so in the end, I was even lawful in that sense. But we'll get probably to asking for the sandals part. But for the sake of it, when I'm pulled out of the car at this moment, we're talking 170 degrees temperature outside over after 1 p.m. in the afternoon, and the asphalt, if you check the temperatures on that date, it was 155 to 165.
Yeah. So for those of you that are not in Arizona or have never had the misfortune of dealing with an Arizona summer, it gets quite hot here. At the end of July, where this was, like you said, it was about 107, 110 degrees somewhere at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. That's a pretty hot part of the day. And when we ultimately checked the asphalt, because that's a big part of this case, when it's that hot out, it's like 160 degrees on the asphalt. You can cook eggs, you can like cook steaks, like you can cook food. It is so hot on the asphalt.
The video is still out there to this day on my YouTube of me cooking pork chops the day after on that very same site, and I've got the two temp gauges and temp gun, and I'm literally cooking pork chops.
Yeah, I know. So so basically, when the audience can probably kind of see where it's going, but essentially, you don't have your shoes that are on because you were driving with flip-flops, but you don't want to drive with flip-flops on, so you just had bare feet. He pulls you out. Now you're standing on the asphalt. This is like you were able to get off the freeway. You went through the roundabout, so this is like an actual street where it's black tar underneath your feet. And so tell me kind of like how that interaction is. Obviously it's hot, but like tell me what it's like. I've never had to talk to an officer barefoot on 160 degree asphalt before. So what's going on?
So I am definitely born and bred Arizona, so I'm very familiar with the asphalt and exactly what it will do to you. But I'm also pretty tempered to it to an extent. No matter how good you are, though, it still burns. So yeah, my feet were burning, but I know enough to. You can minimize the burning by shifting your weight back and forth. And so that's effectively all I was doing is, I'm just kind of like moving my feet, just kind of a little bit back and forth,
distributing the heat, essentially.
Yeah, thank you. Distributing the heat. That was the word I was kind of looking for. But yeah, that's all I'm doing, just trying to extend it, and also just trying to be as polite as possible, because again, I've been burned and set on fire. I've been a fire safety for fire performers for many years. So I can keep my cool under this situation is kind of the reason why I'm articulating that. And so I'm just keeping calm and answering his question. I'm like, oh, it sucks, but still being calm. But that's the reason. That's where he comes into saying that I was resisting, is just because I'm moving my feet. But again, for the fact of the matter, I'm just simply moving my feet back and forth. So I'm not moving much more than this in my upper body. So if that's called resisting, okay, I guess you shouldn't breathe either.
Yeah, so this was I mean,
That was a terrible pun.
no. So it was funny. So I think that it's you fell into a situation that a lot of people kind of fall in for one reason or another. They have to move their body, whether that's an itch, their arm is pinned down by somebody, they're getting hurt, it's hot on the asphalt, like it's cold outside, whatever the case may be, that people like move around and don't stay perfectly still. And when you don't stay perfectly still, all of a sudden officers seem to start to get nervous or worried or afraid or think that you're trying to do something that you shouldn't be doing. And immediately they start to say, stop moving. Or if they're trying to arrest you or detain you, stop resisting. And that's a phrase that I hear commonly of officers consistently saying, stop resisting. And people are like, I'm not, or stop moving. And they tell them the reason why they're moving. And so you're not alone in that.
But there's two ways to go about that, actually. There's one for being in an honest situation, like, hey, just stop resisting, because maybe they are legitimately in a fearful moment. That is justified for them to explain it. However, there's the other aspect, and there's always two sides to every situation, depending on the type of person which you are and what your motivation is. Some people are malicious, some people aren't. It doesn't matter what job you have. There's even bad doctors out there, by the way. But the point in case, in this, you can use that in your favor to do something malicious, because all you have to do is, stop resisting. And because the other person on the other side of the fence they are in legit fear. Like, their body's now in fight or flight mode, right. No matter what. But the other thing is when you start saying stop resisting, I'm like, well, no, I'm not. And this is exactly what I did too. I'll never forget this. He's like, I'm not resisting. But me turning my neck back to him, he's like, don't face me. And he's like, quit resisting. And that's when he shoved me into my car and he put it down. That was a 2016. That was my brand new custom Outback steel dealer plates. And this is part of the reason why I guarantee he went further for the extreme measure, because not only am I like just some person speeding, but once I get out of the car, he's like, holy crap, dude's in dreads and dude has a brand new car with a brand new dealership plates. Oh, I've got a drug dealer. Yeah. Which, by the way, I'm not. No.
Yeah.
I'm not.
I know.
I have a good job. Back to, my career. Trust me.
And that raises a good point, because it's like, was there some type of stereotyping that was going on here? Because, yeah, people criminals speed all of the time. And that is something that a DPS officer, he worked for DPS, so that's something that DPS officer sees regularly.
And it's their job to, actually. Like,
right.
It's in our nature to stereotype everybody, and there's stereotypes for a reason. So I will never fault him for actually stereotyping me in that situation, all the way down to the drug dealer part. That's fine, because that's your initial profile and how he needs to react to the situation, prepare himself for the situation. But what changes in this situation is because, since I was being calm and cool about it for the most part, and just answering his question, I'm like, what? I was speeding. I mean, even when he asked, you were speeding, I'm like, I was just doing 85, but yeah, I was speeding.
Yeah.
In that point, that should have started de-escalating his side of the situation, because he is the most responsible, or should be, and he is the one that ideally is in control, technically, and well, I guess he really was. But either way, from a morality sense, that's just his duty to be the better person in the situation. But back to using that tactic to his advantage, if you look at Officer Hour's history and just his behavior during that video, he wanted to do this, and he was hoping I was going to be that big drug dealer so he could get all the praises from his brothers back at the station, like, yeah, dude, you whooped his ass. But in the end, it turned out to be very against, quite the opposite of the case.
Yeah. And I think what I'll say is, I don't think that it's okay to stereotype people. I think we can understand it when people do, where we understand and say, maybe this type of person, based on the totality of the circumstances, is more inclined to do something like this. Like, I can understand when people do it and understand why they do it. I don't think that makes it okay. And I don't think that it makes it okay that because you had dreads, or because you had tattoos, or because you're driving a nice car, that all of a sudden he can start being aggressive with you, being violent with you, and like thinking that you're doing more than what you did. So I don't think that's okay for his behavior. And going to your point on escalation, I think that escalated this situation more than to what it ever needed to be.
And that was the weaponization of that tactic, because that was a tactic in that case. It wasn't a response, it was a tactic. It was something that he intentionally did to escalate the situation because he wanted to, we'll go air quotes, whoop my ass, because he was enjoying that. I mean, you could even hear kind of throughout the video, like when I'm screaming like, dude, just take me over the dirt. Because again, I'm born and bred in Arizona. Hell, you could take me that sidewalk, the concrete sidewalk, the gray stuff. That stuff is not as hot. But the dirt is really where I want to go. And please, just take me over there. Take me anywhere except the asphalt. I was like, nope, we're going to stay right here. And that's when you see him pick me up and throw me in the air.
Yeah,
in the
so let's
video.
talk about this. So basically, you're starting to wobble on your feet. It's hot. He's giving you commands and trying to say that you're either resisting or that you're moving or doing something. And ultimately, you guys end up on the ground. How do you guys end up on the ground?
So that was when he slammed me into the car. After slamming me in the car and dented my new car with my belt buckle, and that's when I realized, like, oh shit, this is now serious. Like before, I thought I could probably, like, just try to continue to be cool and just get out of it. Now I'm a yes sir, no sir person, and I am never a yes or no person with any judge or cop, because we're mutual humans together. I don't see a reason to give them any special more respect. But again, since I respect them as normal humans, I will talk to them as a normal human, politely and respectfully.
You're not being rude at all.
Exactly. I never have believed in the sense of a requirement for sir or ma'am in the justice system. And honestly, I think it makes you look more of a liar when you use those kind of terms, because like when you come in and like, when you just robbed a liquor store and you come into the courtroom in a big old $5,000 suit and a $10,000 lawyer, you're like, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Well, you make yourself out to be more of a criminal and liar than you did before. But then again, that's not necessarily entirely true. But back to stereotypes, that's just kind of a bit of perception, initially. But however, should you ever judge a person entirely based upon that? No, it's just kind of, there's just an automatic reaction that we all just do naturally. But back to the police,
Like if people are going to say that stuff, then they should, and that's their normal way to speak, they speak. But you're saying don't adopt some personality that's not yours, where it's like, you don't normally use that language, so don't go into a courtroom and just use that language because you're in a courtroom.
yeah, and just be honest and be yourself. And honestly, I have spent very little time in jail. I have been arrested more times than most people have in this world, and not for serious criminal charges, but some pretty dumb things. But I have spent very little time in jail. It's just because I have always been respectful and polite to them, and I didn't give them the bullshit, the BS.
Yeah, and well, this is a great place to like talk about your philosophy, I think, because I don't know if you remember or not, but one of the first things that like you said to me when I started representing you on this case was that your mindset used to be people that get charged with resisting arrest or people that get taken down to the ground are people that deserve it because they're people that weren't complying or they did something wrong or they treated the officer in some way they shouldn't. And you were kind of a little bit of a back the blue sort of mentality when you came in with that. So can you speak to that a little bit of what your mentality was before all of this happened?
So as a kid, I had huge hesitation towards police, but even in that sense, back around that time, police were kind of a bit of a brotherhood and just a bit of above the law. I mean, hell, they were all watching Above the Law, the movies and whatnot, and they all wanted to be that, lone cowboy kind of thing. But once we kind of got past that, and as time grew up, and just really as I grew up and, became less of a dumb kid, I even had, a bit of a bet with myself. If I made it past the age of 18, then I would at least start becoming a better person. And I, oddly enough, lived. So here I am all these years later, and I just kept that promise to myself. It has never changed. But for the most part, in my interactions with police kind of after, I've always had decent experiences, and I've met some kind of bad cops, but nothing malicious, just, crappy cops. Nothing to even qualify a bad apple, just a bit of jerks and using their authoritative power to an extent. Or hell, go to Chandler. This is my town. Every officer you ever speak to in Chandler, if you're doing some speeding or something, the conversation's going to end or somehow involved. This is my town.
Okay.
Damn near in almost that same accent. And even the judges out there, honestly, Ronald L. Carp. But nonetheless, moving past that, oh crap, I'm sorry, what was the point there?
Just your mentality
Oh, yeah,
on
sorry,
law
back to
enforcement before this. Like, you had this mentality of, like, if you got taken down on the ground, if you got charged with resisting arrest, you deserved it.
And so, yeah, so the reason why I'm kind of, I've always had hesitation towards them, but I still always believed in them for the most part because police are absolutely necessary. And I know enough, I have police friends, I have police family. So I know there are good folks out there. And just again, like any other job, there's always like kind of 1 to 10% in any business, any area that's of bad people. And kind of that 1% is more of the malicious, and the other 10% is kind of just the bad and crappy people. Hopefully, at the bare minimum, we'll go with those numbers. But just overall, I really trusted them, and that's the key thing. Is what it came down to. Is really I trusted them very holistically. And so when you see something, and probably even a lot of it comes from our own conditioning from television and whatnot. Like when you grow up watching cops, and you watch all these dumb idiots out there, and then you're exposed to the real world. And I mean, I've hung out with every walk of life out there, from millionaires to billionaires to just the street scum of the world and everything in between. And I've met wonderful people in all areas. But, geez, I had a lot of trust for them. And in the end, after that, I'm sorry, back to the conditioning. With everything we watched, I just really believed in them, and even my family members, I trusted them. And then after this, even my family members, like they all agree, they still love police, but even then, they admit, and it's not like they ever kept it a secret. They know there are bad folks out there. But this changed I no longer have trust. I don't have the blind trust. I apologize it took me that long to get to that, but I believe that's, if you want to boil it down to, I just simply don't have that blind trust that I did anymore. And even then, it wasn't like 100%, but it's probably like 50-50. Hell, it's more like 30-70, and I'm talking on the low side. Like, if I ever get, I haven't been pulled over. No, I've been pulled over twice since speeding. 100 plus, by the way, 100 plus, and got away with a civil ticket. Got to go to traffic court, go to my traffic survival school with a 100 plus ticket.
Didn't it turn out like this incident?
But because I was polite and nice, and because, yes, I had some decent officers, but, I mean, you can't go to traffic school with a criminal ticket, but they were just cool about it. So, again, still to this day, I have good trust, or I've still met good police, but just automatically when I first got pulled over, the anxiety, like, I'm a very confident and very strong person, but just now, like, every time I see the police, hell, I almost thought I was getting pulled over on the way here, and just there's that tenseness that I get now, and I don't think it'll ever go away.
I'm sorry to hear that. You touched on something that I think is really profound and like powerful to say, but the term blind trust. I think that a lot of people in our society have a blind trust for police officers, for law enforcement. I don't know where it begins or how it starts. Little kids dressing up as police officers, like seeing them coming to their school, helping out. I think we all want police officers to be like the superheroes of the world. We want them to be good. Like, we want them to, not do wrong, and to like be the people that we look up to. And so I think a lot of people in society have that same sort of blind trust. And then I can't tell you how many people that I've met like you, where they might have that same sort of philosophy, then something will happen with the criminal justice system. And not because they have done something wrong and all of a sudden they like dislike police. I have many people that go out and commit a lot of crimes, driving under the influence, murders, assaults. And like, when they do things that they know that they did, they don't think of the police necessarily any differently than before. They're just like, yeah, self-reflection on me. I messed up. I'm hoping I can cut a break, or here's why I did what I did. But there's a lot of people out there that have this blind trust, and they'll have an interaction with somebody where they were doing everything right, trying to do everything, like their hands on 10 and 2 on the steering wheel, turning on the light when the cop comes up, trying to put out their cigarette on the ground so you're not blowing smoke in their face. And all of a sudden, like, something will go negative about the situation or really bad, and it ruins that trust. And I think that we're at a place in society right now where the trust in law enforcement is not the same as what it used to be for many reasons. But because of the way in which we're seeing some police officers handle themselves. So I think that the term blind trust is a really strong one to use, and you're not alone with that. But I think it segues into, like, why did this situation go so bad? I think that a lot of people are probably wondering that, and ultimately what happened. I have the video right here. I want to play it so that we can watch it and to have you relive that moment.
Just for the record, audio recording quality at this time did not record bass very well, so it's mostly treble. And the reason why I believe a lot of us are conditioned is, again, step back to the TV and the movies we watch. I mean, that's how we see everything. I watch a lot of cartoons that I grew up with, like G.I. Joe and Transformers, and I've been Ghostbusters even. Like, I just rewatched a bunch of them from back in the kid, and I've been watching cartoons for a long time. But because I watch so many cartoons, I get to kind of get an idea as to what they teach kids. And if you remember the cartoons that we watched when we were kids, there were so many adult themes things that we didn't really understand at the time. Now we rewatch them like, holy crap. But just the sense of morality and the blind trust, I believe a lot of it comes from that. And I believe that's a shift in the reason why from the BLM, that era and how things changed, is because that generation has been raised on, if you watch all the TV shows and much more of the adult shows, all you see on Netflix now is everything's about stealing, ripping things off, and heists and whatnot. This came out of nowhere, except the timeline happens to fit perfectly. But the other, one last thing before transition that I'm probably preparing myself, is my case actually happened to be unique. Not so much for one, I got tortured by a cop versus just getting shot like everybody else was, back at that time. But that was kind of what made it a little bit more unique. But one other thing that kind of, not specifically my case, but that specific era. And when this case happened, because that was when a lot of police shootings were occurring at the time all across the country. And that's when damn near the whole country became mandated for police to have dash cams and body cams. Because you'll probably remember, Officer Auer had a camera in that car, but they took it out that day. The only DPS car in Arizona.
Yeah, I remember there were no cameras of this incident, which...
And that's the only reason why we have this footage. Go ahead.
Ends up being a video. Quite interesting, actually. Someone that, and how I met you, but someone that I went to high school with happened to be driving by as this was going on.
Totally random.
Had the wherewithal to pulled out their phone, recorded it, and thank God that happened, because otherwise we would have a situation of an officer's word versus your word for the most part. But because of this video, we have at least something. It starts when you guys are already on the ground, but we have part of it that contradicted a lot of things of what they were trying to say.
I would be in prison if it weren't for this video, just to put it flat out, cut and dry.
Lay down! Lay down on your chest! I can't! Put your feet out! Put your feet out now! Put your feet out now!
Can we please go to the rocks? Just the rocks!
No!
Please!
We're not going anywhere!
Please! Please!
Give me your hands!
Please! Just move over into the fucking dirt! Oh my God!
You're resisting arrest!
I am not!
You are!
Look at my fucking body!
Yeah.
Look at what you're doing to me!
Do what I tell you and this wouldn't happen! Do what I tell you!
Do whatever you want, man!
No, you won't! Lay on your belly! That's all I told you!
I
Get on your
can't!
belly!
This is hot! This is so hot!
Listen to me! If
Please!
you do what I tell you, we'd be done already!
Dude, please, can we move over there?
Get on your
Oh
belly!
my God! Ow!
Get on your
my-
belly!
Dude! Woo! Woo!
Get on your belly! I know it's hot! It's hot! I'll have to put you in the back. Once I get you anchored.
Somebody help me! Please, somebody help me! Please! Please! Oh my God! Oh my God! Ah! Ah! Fuck! Ow! Ah! Oh!
Give me your
Oh, please! Please! Look, sir! Oh! Oh! Oh, it's still hot!
All over on your back.
Oh! Oh! Ah! Oh! Oh my God! Ah! 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 Ah!
All right, now you're gonna stand up. Look at this.
Oh!
You're going right kind of cross.
Oh my God! Do you see this shit?
Get it. Look at that. Holy shit. Nice and cold in here, huh? Get hack, don't blow that bullshit.
Just for the record, the back of a cop car is not air conditioned. There's a giant plexiglass in front of it, so there's no airflow back there. So, holy shit, no, there's no AC.
Yeah, right at the end, that's what we hear him say. We hear him say, like, in this callous, sort of condescending way of, look at that, nice and cold in here, and the air conditioning, and it's not even air conditioning really in the back seat. Like, there's a big glass barrier, plexiglass, like you said, that makes it so what air actually gets to the back seat is, like, questionable.
It's a window this big. It's a hole this big. And because of the size of the hole, there's actually a covering over it to make sure that I can't reach through there.
Right.
So, yes.
The comment was just so unprofessional aside from that. But
I forgot how long that video was, actually.
Well, in the video, it's really hard to watch.
Yeah.
Multiple times in the video, you're saying, please move me to the rocks. Please, it's so hot. It's so hot. Like, it's burning. Please move me to the rocks. He's like, you're resisting. Stop resisting. You're like, I'm not resisting. It's just hot. Please, like, move me over. You're screaming in pain. And he just doesn't seem to care.
And where's the other cuff on my hand? Because as you noted how long that video was, he had a minute and a half, actually, in fact, over a minute and a half prior. We'll just say it's a minute and a half. He had plenty of time to put the other cuff on my other hand because he has had my hand. As police do, they clasp your hand with one hand, so they have the other hand free to finish the job. He never did that. Even when he ran me in the car, he did that with one hand, and his shoulder shoved me into it.
He's a big dude.
Big, shorter than I am, but nonetheless, he was a bulky guy, and if you see in that video, he literally picks me up and throws me, like a rag doll, and that's why I'm screaming to go to the rocks. But to your point, I'm asking to go to the rocks multiple times, and yeah, he's like, no, we don't need to go there.
Right, yeah, he says that. So, obviously, probably really hot, probably really hurt, but, like, walk us through what that was like in those few moments of being on the ground. I can't even imagine.
That was pretty intense. Like I said, when he slammed me in the car, while we're still upright. Oh, that's right. We have to get back to how we ended up on the ground. We haven't covered that yet.
No, you told us. Yeah, he was trying to, like, all of a sudden he said that you're under arrest, and then he said that you were.
Oh no,
moving.
He folded me in half.
What do you mean?
So. Once he shoves me up in the car, he's like, so this is where he asked the alcohol part. He's like, so where's the alcohol? I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? He's like, you know what? We're going to do it this way. And he pulls me back away from the car, kind of like just casually, and then spins me a little bit 90 degrees. So I'm facing away from his vehicle. He knows there's no camera, so it's not like he's trying to cover anything up. He's just putting me in the perfect position. Because what he does next is grab me by the back of my head, and I'm a very flexible person, and he folds my head all the way down to my feet. And that's where all those cuts on my forehead came from. Because you see during the video, There's not a single point where my head hits that ground. That only happened when he folded me in half and rammed my head in the ground. And that's when he wrapped me up and folded me up. And so when he slammed me in the car, that was the moment I realized this is real. This is serious. Like, that's to the yes sir, no sir thing now. But I have no idea. Like, honestly, I just know this is about ready to go really bad. I know for a fact I'm going to jail. So just minimize the damage as much as possible. Try to just cooperate as much, but anything he asks me to do, I will do with a yes, sir. And there wasn't any requests. It was just, he started to fold me up, and you could tell he's a Roman Greco wrestler from high school. Because I wrestle with all of them and I know the moves, and that's when he started doing the arm bars and folding me up, and I am very flexible. So, I'm trying to stay with him to let him do what he's trying to do, but I'm also getting roasted too. So I'm trying to find a balance between getting roasted back to, moving my feet. I'm trying to do the same thing now with my entire body on the ground. And it's becoming more and more apparent that I might actually die. And the worst part is his position, not his physical position sitting on top of me, because I can guarantee flip him over. As you saw, I have lifted him multiple times in that video. I can handle him quite easily if I really wanted to. But I can't, because if I do, that's not a taser that's coming out. That's a gun. And there will be multiple shots and I will be dead. And I think he even threatens me with the gun at one point. I could be wrong. I forget that little detail. But the point is, there was unquestioned that if I gave him the single moment, had I actually resisted, that gun guarantee would have came out. I promise you that. But that's what I had. That was the ultimate thing I had to fight, is myself from fighting him. Because if I do anything, yeah, I am going to be dead. And the problem is, chances are I'm going to get pumped full of several holes, and I'm going to be sitting there burning on the asphalt for even longer. And now I can't do anything because I physically can't move, because I'm pretty much bleeding out at this point. And by the time the ambulance got there, I would have been guaranteed dead. So I had no choice but to find some balance between being tortured and complying. And again, he had so many opportunities to put that cuff on me. That was his whole point of his whole story. Well, I just can't get the cuff on him. Like, you can even hear in the video. Well, basically, I forget the words, but basically he's asking, he wants to get my hand on, get me in. But he somehow requires me to lay like a flat plank on 165-degree asphalt for, I don't know how long. I mean, you could see there's multiple times where I'm there for at least several seconds. He's got opportunity. He's been training for this for years. He's not a new cop. He's been in the force for like 10 plus years, I think, at this time. So he's done this before. And somehow he just can't do it. So to your question earlier is, how did I feel? Like, literally, I was terrified. I was terrified for my life. I've never felt like I was going to die. I felt like I was going to die many times. Doing dumb stuff again. And that's fear, exhilarating fear. Yeah. This is terrifying fear, and there is a huge difference. I have never felt that way in my life ever since, and I hope I never feel that way again. Do you remember have you ever seen the movie Hostel?
I don't know that I have.
It's like, it's a Quentin Tarantino movie where the kids, go and they, like when they adopt the kids and, start cutting them up and torturing them for all these weird, crazy, billionaires. That the amount of fear and what they try to instill in you in the movie, or what they try to portray as that person felt, that is very much how I felt. An inescapable moment, because again, I absolutely could fight him. And I could totally, whether or not I survived, I could at least done something. But in this case, I can't. If I want to live, if I want to survive this situation, I have to endure.
And it was really hard to endure with how hot that it was. And bare feet, bare hands, bare skin at time. You still have scars from this? I do, yeah. I do have scars on my feet. On my whole foot over here is all scarred. And I still have scars on my belly right over there. That's where, oddly enough, I'm surprised I only have that little bit there, because by all means, show the pictures. I mean, my hand alone. You were taken to the burn unit, right? Well, yeah. the burn hospital, you had third-degree burns all over your body.
I mean, for the sake of anybody going to, if you're in a case like this, of course you're going to the burn. You have to go there because you want to hopefully win your case. In this case, and I just don't do hospitals. I don't do doctors or anything. In fact, that's the only time, except for when I was a little kid, when I had to go do my physical, that I've ever been to a hospital. To date, I still have never been to a hospital.
For the people that are watching on the video, we'll show them, but these are the pictures.
My skin was literally melted off my hands.
Yeah, the hands right here. Like, you can just see how bad the burn is. This is taken, like, the next day, some
Yeah.
of these.
Some of them were taken day of, the next day, and then 3 days after. Because a lot of them actually kept opening up, like especially the third-degree burn areas. They continue to get worse after, which most burns typically do. Like when you get burned on day one, if you ever had a blister, you're all familiar with this at least one point in your life. It's a little blister today, and then next day, all of a sudden, it's popped open, and now you have exposed flesh, and holy crap, it hurts so bad. Taking a shower, I am a huge fan of showers. I love showers. Man, it was like 3 months. Every day was miserable.
Wow. Ultimately, that initial arrest, the charges got completely scratched, right?
For the first time. Yeah.
So the charges are scratched. This video,
We're effectively
your-
done. Air quotes.
this
Yeah.
video and your story, it hits state, national news, like all over the place.
International, like I mentioned earlier, today there's still people that watch this around the country. Like when I posted a video, because I had to post a video on my own YouTube, which is actually a critical part in my case as well, and how I handled it, because I posted a video on my own YouTube, so I could kind of control the comments and more so control the story. And I wouldn't even call it necessarily controlling the story, but control my side of the story, because only everybody ever knew was what the news and DPS told them. So I at least took the opportunity to share my side of the story. But by doing this, because I have YouTube statistics, and literally people are watching this from around the world for years later.
Wow.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So this was all over the news. A lot of people question Trooper Hours tactics and whether or not it was excessive force.
And a lot of people praised him.
And a lot of people praised him. You're right. People with the blind trust, thinking that you had done something that got into that situation to deserve it.
All my friends, actually, the few friends I had that surely did tell me I screwed up and I earned it. They actually have the same, very similar blind trust. They really will believe anything. And
So-
I was one of them. Go ahead.
So ultimately, they did draw your blood when you were at the burn unit. They were trying to find anything against you. DPS came out with a statement. DPS said, we cannot control where people decide to fight us. We cannot control where they decide to resist, whether that's hot asphalt or Antarctica. Like, we can't control that. He was not injured. He had no burns on his body. They indicated that you weren't hurt in any way. They indicated that you were under the influence, that you appeared to be under the influence of drugs or alcohol or something. So they took your blood and tested it.
And they said drugs or alcohol or something. In other words, we don't know. We're just pretty sure he's
Yeah.
on something.
Your blood results came back a few months later. I think that's part of what they were waiting on to see if they were going to charge you. But November 8th of 2016, your blood results come back. No alcohol in your system. No drugs in your system, no active marijuana in your system, no THC delta 9. The only thing that comes up in your system is a metabolite of marijuana, carboxy THC. And for those of you that don't know, carboxy THC can stay in someone's system for months. So whether you had smoked the day before or months before, we don't know. So ultimately, you never got charged with a DUI because there was nothing in your system.
Now-
So that proved to not be correct.
Let's
The fact that you
also-
were injured proved to not be correct.
And with that, let's go and say that I did have alcohol in my system, even 0.002, or we'll go 0.008. If that was in my system, they would add that police report, or they would add toxicology report the very next day. right?
They could have. They could have.
Probably within less than a week, but not certainly less than several months. But, speculation on that, but just knowing the historical likelihood and behavior. Yeah. They just did so much to draw this out. I apologize. Go ahead.
No, you're okay. So essentially now where we're living is there's no criminal case going on. There's no blood results or anything. And we didn't get sent those because there was no criminal case at the time. So we didn't get sent that at the time. But what we did do is we reached out to a colleague of mine that specializes in civil actions against the police about excessive force cases. You hired him and ultimately hired us, but then we sued the Department of Public Safety. And that dragged on for about a year, and ultimately they settled with you. They settled with you for $25,000. That's what this settlement is here. They didn't admit any wrongdoing or fault, which is pretty common for settlements, but they did settle for $25,000. Talk to us about the civil process and how you felt about that. And, a lot of people would say that $25,000 for what you had to go through is nothing. So talk about why you took the settlement and the whole process.
So originally it was something I was a little higher, but I was very firm and adamant. I wanted an apology letter from Officer Hour, and especially the dude, the commander or whatever his title is, captain, that went on international TV. He's like, no, he's on drugs, and he didn't get hurt at all, dude.
Yeah,
but
that's the thing. You had a higher settlement at one point, and what was more important to you than the money, what was more important than anything else, is you just wanted the trooper to apologize, or the Department of Public Safety to issue an apology for what they had done and the way in which they had treated you. And their response to that was to say no apology, and now your settlement offer is $25,000.
Yeah.
I have my own thoughts on that, but how did that make you feel?
That was pretty bogus, but I guess I wouldn't call it shocking or surprising. It was kind of like, wow, you guys really have no moral standing anymore. Justice is a dying whore. It's a phrase that's been said before, and for the sake of that the latter word, there's monetary involvement. It's not just the other form where it's free. You have to kind of pay for the service, and there's money involved, and it's gone past the point of justice and doing something right, and it's really just kind of become a monetary based system. And there's more to it beyond that, but it was just very evident they just don't care. And I'm like, all right, well, fine, just have Officer Hour apologize. Nope, we didn't do anything wrong. And now I'm even more mad. But finally, it's like, and because they had done this, they had already called me back, so we had agreed, the courts agreed, we're done with the case. But because they have the ability to reintroduce and kind of bring it back up, they waited the very last minute to do this. And so they called me back into court yet again. And so you and I had to go back into court yet again, just out of nowhere, because it was the last minute for them to be able to refile. Otherwise, the case would have been lost, and they would have had to basically admit defeat. At the end, because we went through this, I think two times, and the third time they couldn't pursue it or something to that effect, or just gone on enough times. Unless they just wouldn't pursue it anymore. But because of the time it had dragged on for almost 2 years at this point, the best I could do is go to trial, and I could certainly probably get a heck of a lot more money. And but the trial probably wouldn't get coverage. The bigger point of what it would mean, and like to get the police to change, it already had happened. Back to the body cams and the DPS cars having cameras in there very, very consistently after the fact. The bigger goal of what I really wanted to see achieved, even though I didn't get the apology, there was an apology in a silver linings kind of thing. There was an apology in a way in those actions.
What do you mean by that?
Just because even though you don't necessarily have to admit you screwed up, but if you change your actions to make yourself held more accountable in the future, like maybe do something better, but in this case, make a change to make your actions more accountable. Videos, video camera, body cam footage, and traffic cars. The cars having the cameras in them, that makes them more accountable. They had to push to make this change. They didn't just, now granted, buildings on fire, they have no choice, but at least they finally did it. So if that's what it took, then fine, so be it. Now, would I certainly have liked to have gotten more money out of the situation? Because literally all that did is pay for the medical bills, which didn't even, in the end, didn't even cover that. So literally I lost out of this case. Even though I won, I still lost. But to the grander aspect of what I hoped for, and the reason why, I'm not like some faithful person, but of all the people in the world, I believe I was better equipped to handle that situation just because I have a better moral standing, I suppose, than some other people may have had about it. And granted, it didn't pay off for me. I'm not some $500,000 multimillionaire because of some settlement. But again, at least we got a better outcome in how the police, and like I mentioned earlier, when's the last time you seen anybody really getting pulled over for, doing 5 miles, 7 miles and over the speed limit? Hell, the police speed all the time. They're doing 10, 15 over all the time, very consistently now too, because it's just not a big deal. And it's, as long as you're not doing something stupid, as long as you're going kind of with the flow of traffic. And now with the flow of traffic, and there's jokes about this online now, Cat Williams, where if you're doing less than 75 in Arizona, you're probably getting passed and probably getting yelled at.
Right.
But just that all occurred after those moments. So again, for the bigger goal of what I hope for, that is the settlement that it lets me sleep at night to feel that I didn't get completely screwed over.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I there's a lot to what you were saying there. 25,000 does not do anything for what you had to endure. It didn't even cover your medical bills. The fact that they thought it was so absurd to even contemplate the idea of apology, that to me was so offensive that that's how they felt about it, that they would rather, not have a case settled than to apologize or to be so righteous to think that there wasn't anything wrong. But then, like you said, we started seeing more accountability. We start seeing more body cams. We see Officer Hour go on leave. Ultimately, we see him go to a desk job and no longer have a route. We don't see other people in this situation by DPS in Arizona anymore. I mean, I don't see, in 9 years, I haven't seen any other case like yours of people getting that type of treatment on the ground. So whether it was behind closed doors, sort of like, hey, you can't do this, or whatever the case may be, like you said, actions definitely changed. Well, that's not the end of the story. So basically, you reached that settlement on July 17th of 2020. And on July 17th of 2020, after you thought, okay, the criminal case
2020?
I'm sorry, no. July 20th of 2017.
Okay.
That's the date of the
when
settlement. What they didn't tell us on the settlement date is that 2 days prior to reaching that settlement, you had been indicted by a grand jury with a new indictment bringing back the case for resisting arrest and excessive speed. Excessive speed was the Class 3 misdemeanor. Resisting arrest was a Class 6 felony. They didn't tell us about that when we were settling with DPS, and granted, they're different entities. This is the Maricopa County Attorney's Office that did this, but still the state nonetheless.
They talk to each other.
And grand jury proceedings are sealed, so we didn't know about this grand jury indictment and that you had been indicted at the time of the settlement. Otherwise, I'm guessing you probably wouldn't have settled. Is that fair?
Your legal advice probably would, I will agree with that one, yes. Yeah, I didn't know the whole thing.
This was put behind you.
Pretty much, yeah.
The charges have been scratched for nearly a year. We were dealing with a civil lawsuit. The civil stuff had been going on for almost a year. If they wanted to go and charge you because you were suing them, they could have done that many, many months ago. But then we get up to basically like a few days before your statute of limitations on misdemeanors. There's a 7-year statute of limitation on felonies, so the resisting arrest, they could have charged any time within 7 years. But the misdemeanor, we are about a few days away from that
That's what it was.
statute
yes.
of limitation. And so they indict you. DPS doesn't tell us. You settle thinking, okay, we're going to go our separate ways. I'm going to get my medical bills paid, whatever. And so now we're back to a criminal case. And we get in the criminal case and I try and tell the prosecutors, hey, they've reached this settlement. What are you guys doing? This charge was scratched. Like, you don't want to go forward with this case. And they're like, no, we're not dismissing the case.
Just to put that in a little perspective, because I had to drive to court that day from way out where I live. So that was a long drive. Got a nail in my tire, super pissed because the I-10. So I'm already aggravated by the time I get in, just for the fact that I have to come in here because we're already done. I get in there, and me and we already talked, like, why now? Why am I even here? And you're like, look, I'm going to go handle this. And so whatever stateside prosecutor comes out, walks in the room, and she's like, I recommend Mr. LeBeau basically immediately go to jail. There should be no bail, and we'll set trial for later because he's a flight risk and all this crap. But yeah,
this
that's
was
why.
the initial appearance. Like, we have to talk about your release conditions. You've been out for now a year, and now they indict you. So we have to have an initial appearance and talk about what your release conditions are going to be. And I think, oh, this is obvious. We're going to release him on his own recognizance because that's how he's been for the last year. And all of a sudden, they're arguing for a lot more.
Yeah, they literally asked. They said he needs to go to jail because he's a flight risk, and there's no history of any of this. But I mean, again, we're settled, so I've been at home for quite a while, and obviously I just got the letter. I'm here. But yeah, so I'm in there, and she's like, "Well, he's a flight risk, and so there should be no bail, and we're gonna postpone the trial till like 2 or 3 months later."
Yeah.
Maybe it's 1 month later.
I
But
don't know if
either
they
way,
said no bail, but they might have wanted you to have some sort of bond. It definitely wasn't OR, and they were trying to equate your criminal speeding from a year ago to being a flight risk all of a sudden.
yeah, and they're like, they're just super hardcore. I'm like, well, what the hell? And I look over to you. You're just like, trust me, I got this. I'm like, I'm sure as hell hope so. And you walk off and you go in the little side room, and I'm sitting there like, what the fuck, dude? I'm like starting to freak out. Like, I thought I was coming in here and we're gonna walk out and kind of be a pretty straightforward day. No, I come out and I'm sorry. Either way, you come back out. I swear to God. And I even remember, because, yeah, while she was coming up, she's like, you asked her, she's like, have you even heard this case yet? And she's like, yeah, I just reviewed the notes 5 minutes before I walked in. Or I think she actually specifically said 7 minutes before she walked in. Because I remember it was just a few minutes. And I'm like,
Like, I've been living this
you
for
were
a
literally
year.
making decisions without even knowing anything? And that's when you're like, look, dude, I got this. And yeah, you went in the other room and you came back out a couple minutes later and she walked like almost sullenly up to the stand. She's like, yeah, Your Honor, after speaking with the defense's counsel, we've concluded that something charges dropped. We've already agreed charges dropped and blah, blah, blah. Defendant can go ahead and leave.
Well, not dropped yet, but maybe the release conditions.
Yeah,
it took
it
a
was
little
basically
bit more work. To get
I'm
it
allowed
dropped,
to
but it was
leave,
like, yeah,
and I'm not going to jail without bail, and
right.
I'm not waiting
You got
for a
to be
court
out.
hearing.
Yeah. So then what we had to do is we get the grand jury transcripts eventually, and the grand jury transcripts come back, and I see there are multiple issues with the grand jury transcript. And grand jury transcripts there's a court reporter that sits there, but there's no judge, there's no defense attorney, there's no you, just the prosecutor and a cop that works for DPS that goes in familiar with the case or familiar with the police report. And they testify about what happens and they leave, and then the grand jurors vote and they say if they want to find if there's probable cause to issue the indictment, which most people get indicted. So ultimately, that's how you got indicted, but we get the transcripts later of what the court reporter typed up of what everyone said. A couple of things stood out to me. The state did not present some statutes that I felt like they should have presented, that they should have presented a duress statute, or they should have presented a self-defense or like a justification statute of like you wanted to comply, but out of necessity you could not comply because of the heat. And they didn't read those statutes for the grand jury, which I thought was a problem. The bigger problem that I thought is that they told the grand jurors 2 statements about what you had said. It said that Mr. LeBeau complained that the pavement was hot and that he was screaming the pavement was hot. And that was kind of the extent of what they told the grand jurors, but they never played them the video. And so my biggest gripe with the whole thing, I said, Judge, this needs to go back to the grand jury. They need to play the video. They had it. They knew about it. DPS had it. This has been going on for a year. It was all over the news. Like, they don't want to play the video because they know how bad the video is. Because on the video, he's saying, please take me on the rocks. Stop resisting. I'm not resisting. It's just really hot. Please, it's so hot. And the state responded to that motion. And they said, hey, we don't need to read those statutes. We don't need to replay the video. We don't need to do this stuff, essentially. Well, then we go to court on November 13th of 2017, and there's a discussion that's held, and ultimately the court grants my motion to remand the case back to the grand jury. And when that happens, it doesn't mean that the case is over. It means that the state has to go and do it again and do it the correct way, present the evidence they're supposed to correct, the law they're supposed to present. They have 15 days to do that. So, and it gets to the end of November, and they haven't done that. And so then we file this motion to dismiss for lack of indictment, November 29th. And we're basically saying it's past the 15 days. They didn't do that. State responds to that, and they say a one-sentence response. The state of Arizona, by and through undersigned counsel, has no objection to defense's motion to dismiss without prejudice for lack of indictment. And then the court, a week or so later, says the court has reviewed the defendant's motion to dismiss for lack of indictment, as well as the response. It is ordered granting the motion, dismissing the action without prejudice. I was surprised that they ever even brought the case back up. I still to this day have mixed thoughts about like why they did that.
Just to be asshole.
Part of me thinks the left hand wasn't talking to the right hand, and like they weren't talking to DPS, and they just were like, oh, couple days until the misdemeanor statute of limitations, we got to file this. And I thought, okay. But then once they started saying, I'm not going to dismiss the case, they're fighting the grand jury remand motion, they're asking for your release conditions to be higher than OR, I start to think this isn't just the left hand not talking to the right hand. Like, this is vindictive. Like, this is something where they knew about the settlement, or they knew what was going on, and all of a sudden they want to like still charge this. Like, they were upset with you for getting a settlement, or they were upset at this being all over national and international news. They were upset how like this painted the department. Like, I don't know what it was. These are all just what's going on in my mind. But what were your thoughts? Like, it being scratched originally, reaching a settlement, having it come back, and then like seeing their actions in the case and how hard it was to get a dismissal. Like, do you have any thoughts on like why they brought it back up?
The ultimate weapon in life is time. And yeah, in this case, a government entity, an authoritative body, not an individual, but something like that. It doesn't have a lifespan per se, unlike us. And it's all, from the kind of analogy from a machine perspective, there's always cogs within there that could be replaced. So it'll perpetually go on, and they don't have an individual lifespan. They don't have to take care of their wolves. They don't have to, spend time with their wife and girlfriend. You don't have to, it doesn't live. It's an entity, a body. So from their perspective, they have all the time in the world. From my perspective, I don't. Now, one key advantage I had through all this case, not only was it the video, but also just my job. I have a very flexible schedule. So I work 24/7, 365, but I kind of work 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. Some mix between is really what it comes down to. The key thing is just because of the work that I do and the quality of work that I do, I have some freedom when it comes to my schedule to take care of things like this. Well, not take care of things like this, but take care of things that need to be taken care of. Hopefully not to this extent, but even to that extent, my companies, once they understood, I mean, it's not like they don't know what's going on.
Right.
It's on all their news. They're in North Carolina, and they know about this.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, yeah, they were completely on my side on this one. Like, yeah, if you need to take time off, then fine. But not everybody has that opportunity. So again, where I kind of had the advantage in the situation, I was a better person for the job. It just kind of worked out in that sense. But back to what the intent was here, they have time. So for them to get what they want, and like, well, when you have even a cyber crime, when you have a company that's breached and whatnot, how many times have you ever heard of the end result of that? Never really. Because what happens is it goes to the legal system. So you have company A versus company B, blaming, each other for whose fault it is. And that's what you hear about in the news. But you don't hear blame on either side. You can't make a verdict on your own side. And then because all these legal battles go on for a long time, even if you're really interested, there's so much stuff that's happened in the last year or two. Like, there was a lot of folks that are following my case internationally, and they want to know what's going on. But because it just fell out, because all these other issues and whatnot, their lives came up, it just dissipates and gets diluted. So back to the weapon of time. In this case, it is a weapon. It's the weapon they have against you. The government never screws up. I want to say another word. It starts with an F and might ends with a K, but at the very least, they don't ever screw up. And just for the emphasis, that the word kind of has a little more special empathetic meaning. But in this case, no, they just never do anything wrong, and they're infallible. But they screw up all the time. We know they do.
Yeah.
And we're not blind to it. And back to the blind trust. And this is, the shift of paradigm. Like, even then, I've already said it, like, you kind of know they do some wrong things, but you just, overall, could be worse. But could be worse, eventually you're a dog tied to a chain in a backyard with a 3-foot fence. Could be worse.
Yeah.
Now, that's an extreme analogy, but if we allow this behavior to perpetuate, let's say the actions didn't change anything. Let's twist the story, and the body cams didn't come out, and they really stood hard, and no, they didn't screw up at all. Then that would really paint a very, very different, darker future, the Orwellian kind of future, 1984 bits, if you will. But because things changed, it at least offered the opportunity to see something become better out of it. But to me as the individual, I still have to be punished. And for one, that's how the judicial system is. So maybe it's even the foundation of that. Like, I'm a criminal and I got away with it. How dare you? We're going to punish you. You must suffer somehow. But because they suffered greater, just like a bully, some little crap kid in the schoolyard, somehow something happens and you get in a fight and you win. And now all of a sudden they got to come back and get revenge. And they're not going to do it just equally. They're going to do it not like the eye for an eye for thing is now no longer, that's not in their moral compass. You must suffer greater.
So,
Go ahead.
So going off of that, because I don't know what to think. Like I said, part of me originally thought they're just not communicating. But then that perception kind of changed to where I'm like, no, if they just weren't communicating, they would have allowed him to be released on his own recognizance, or they would have dismissed the case right when they found that out, or they wouldn't have challenged the motion to remand. But then it was like, once they knew about all of this stuff going on, they still were fighting. So it did feel like revenge. It felt like they were mad about the low settlement that was paid. They were mad about the publicity, that there needed to be some sort of vindication. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if it's not, but that's at least what it felt like from my perspective. Going with that, if that were the case, why do you think it changed? Because I filed the motion to remand. They contest it, put in writing all these issues of why I'm wrong and it shouldn't be granted. Then it gets granted. All they have to do is go back to the grand jury and show the video. They say, They let the 15 days pass. They don't do it. And they say, we have no objection to defense's motion. Do you have any thoughts on why we get that 180 from them of just like no longer fighting?
If I were a gambler, and for one, I'm not, but on this one, they put me in my place. But when you put a, kind of corner a wolf in the corner, and you might get them to back off, but if you keep coming, and I mean, if they really, really want to push me on that one, I guarantee you, had they had pushed back and had it not have been settled out in such a quiet, subtle, drawn-out way, if they would have provoked me more, I would have just lost it, and I would have gone full throttle. I'm like, you were going down. And I would have pursued it, and I would have gone to trial. So
and then it would have been publicity.
Not to.
So, and then it would have been publicity, which I think is kind of where I'm sort of leaning of like, why did we see this shift from them? Why was there 180? I think it's because at the moment the judge agrees with me and says it does need to be remanded, and you have to go back and play the video. One, either it's an ego thing where if you go back and play the video and then the grand jury doesn't indict, now like you also had a grand jury tell you like, hey, that we're not going to indict on this, and you lose that way. So I think it's an ego thing, but also I think even if they did indict, you're right, you would have taken the case to trial. The court of public opinion. We would go out there. There's media attention. It's played like all throughout there. And I don't think they wanted that.
There's no way we would have lost that.
And
like if that video as long as that video got to the jury, that was a key requirement.
Yeah.
Then we would have won, and that settlement would have been in the million era.
Yeah, for the civil case, and then for the criminal side of thing too. But I just so many things were interesting and fascinating about the case. I'm so sorry about everything that you had to go through. I appreciate you coming on to share your story. It's been great to see you again. What I like to always ask my guests when they come on here is, being somebody that gets to share your story and talk about what the justice system was for you and your experience, what parting message do you have for anyone that is watching or listening to this about the justice system? Any advice or takeaways from your experience?
Just like anybody, police are humans, and so is anybody else in the justice system, but that doesn't mean that humans are all good. It just means they're all humans. So treating them just like anybody else, be polite, be respectful up until a point. But it doesn't require yes sir or no sir. And another key thing is just be honest. And now honesty, because when it comes to the police, and more so the any authoritative system, even from parents, this all will even down to this level, they have the ability to lie to you. And they will, because that is it's almost kind of their job. Even
They're
though
allowed to.
And they're allowed to, and it's kind of like do as I say, not as I do. That's as long as you're polite and good with them. And if you screwed up, I mean, if you're doing 100 plus and you get pulled over, don't argue. Just be cool with it and like, hey, and you'll probably be going home. Not always the case. I mean, again, I've been pulled over, probably well over 50 times. And that's the only time I've ever had like some serious situation. So for the most part, you shouldn't really have to worry about much, but it doesn't hurt to always kind of be on guard. But, to the way your question kind of goes, is there something that I could have done or thought about that would have changed my perspective to allow me to handle it better or something along those lines? Or
no, just what's your any parting advice or takeaway for guests that are experiencing the justice system? Do you have any advice for them?
Be thorough and learn the English language quite well, because when it comes to lawyers and the legal system, it's all about the English language. And in order to represent yourself, because I have many times, in this case I did not, but even in this case I think I represent myself to some extent, or certainly I was able to convey to you, even from my legal understanding on things, just being able to communicate effectively what really happened and be honest with your lawyer, and your lawyer will tell you how you can keep your morality in the sense of being honest, because again, a government authoritative entity will not be honest with you. In fact, they'll actually lie to you to get you to lie, but you can still be the better person and not lie. But you also have to be, it's very important for you not to disclose the entire truth, just the most relative truth that truly matters.
So being a good communicator, advocating for yourself, I think that's some really good advice, because even if you're not representing yourself, which you shouldn't, and I don't advise that for people, but you were instrumental in this case in terms of being able to convey what happened. Story stayed consistent every single time I've talked to you, even 9 years later, and being able to communicate is a form of advocacy, and I think that that's really powerful.
You know, just to kind of polish that off a little bit, I don't think there's anything that you could have done for me, well, you could have done plenty for me, but had I been lying to you the whole time, or like had I been changing my story, like Officer Hour's story, I mean, even the car I own had changed multiple times. I went from a Forester to an Outback to a Forester, but that's what screwed him over. Not only did he screw up just to begin with, but that also just put more holes in his case. So on the flip side, from a defendant standpoint, because for one, my story remains consistent, and for two, it remains honest, that allows you to defend me better. And sure, I probably told you a couple little things that I did that might have shouldn't have done, but we're talking a speeding ticket, dude. So it's not like I went and murdered somebody. So, okay, what's the worst it could have done? Theorize about it. But nonetheless, no, there's no drugs or no alcohol. So yeah, can't be that bad. But nonetheless, that's where you come in to help with that. But if I gave you all incorrect facts, or just how can you help me in that situation?
Yeah.
And then that puts you in a frustrating situation. And part of it too is like, even with the whole advent of like AI and how folks are like expecting it to like, AI is just going to do everything for me. You have to ask the right questions to get it to give you the right answers.
Yeah.
And same thing, you have to give it the right detail for it to give you the right information relative to what you're kind of like going for.
Yeah.
Same thing comes down with like in your position. If I can't, like, Chris, you saw the video. Take care of it, man. Like, look, that video that is enough. That's all you need to know.
Right.
What, you're calling me? What, dude? I don't have time to deal with you. Had I done any of that crap, I'd probably be in prison.
Yeah. No, that's really good advice. So thank you so much for coming on, Mark. I appreciate it.